Politicians doing what they do best, making a mess of things and weaponizing people's misery. We're going to talk about it on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone. Today we're going to talk about Puerto Rico and what's going on there with this storm that's just gone past. This morning, Puerto Rico is already going into recovery mode after the passage of Tropical Storm Dorian, which is the first major storm to strike the island since Hurricane Maria in 2017, which hit with 175-mile-an-hour winds. Now, Maria, I was there after that one, knocked down 80% of the island's power lines and left 3.4 million Americans without power in the largest blackout in U.S. history. And it led to the untimely deaths of almost 3,000 people. But keep in mind, those deaths happened months or even more than a year after Maria hit the island, from lack of medicines and substandard medical care being offered by the island's hospitals. That's important to think about. But as always, the politicians never miss an opportunity to use these crises to bash their rivals. In the last few days, for example, Donald Trump took to Twitter to bash Carmen Yulín Cruz, the mayor of San Juan. His tweet said this: Puerto Rico is one of the most corrupt places on earth. Their political system is broken, and their politicians are either incompetent or corrupt. Congress approved billions of dollars last time, more than any place else has ever gotten, and is sent to crooked politicians. No good. Then he went on to tweet, we're tracking closely Tropical Storm Dorian as it heads as usual to Puerto Rico. FEMA and all others are ready and will do a great job. When they do, let them know it and give them a big thank you. Not like last time. That includes from the incompetent mayor of San Juan. Well, leave it to our president to tell the truth about Puerto Rico, but do it in the most abrasive and boorish way possible. It's true Puerto Rico's politicians are incredibly corrupt. Nobody would, in their right mind, would deny that. It's also true that their system's broken. And it's true that FEMA is ready to help and will probably do a great job. But what's not true is that we're sending more aid there than we did anywhere else. We sent more aid to New Orleans, for example, after the big hurricane there in 2005. What's not helpful is for the president to spend any time at all tweeting at his enemies. I mean, seriously, what good does that do? He only feeds the anti-Trump hysteria, which needs no feeding, you can be sure. For her part, Carmen Yulín Cruz went on CNN and blamed Trump for the 3,000 deaths that resulted from an act of God.
It seems like some people have learned the lessons of the past or are willing to say that they didn't do right by us the first time and they're trying to do their best. That is not the case with the President of the United States. We are not going to be concerned by, frankly, his behavior, his lack of understanding. And it is ludicrous. 3,000 Puerto Ricans did not open their eyes this morning because this racist man did not have it within him to do his job. So get out of the way, President Trump, and let the people that can do the job get the job done.
So she's comparing Trump to God, I guess. But a few weeks ago, Trump was comparing himself to Jesus Christ. Look, all of this is just as childish on Yulín Cruz's part as it is on Trump's Twitter habit's part. It's a mirror image, though. Whereas Trump tells the pretty close to the truth, at least, in the worst possible way, Cruz is telling a lie and twisting it to fit her narrative for her own political gain. And of course, CNN just laps that up. So take a look at this package I made. I think it's important to understand a little context here. So take a look at this thing I made after I spent a couple weeks on the ground in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. What it shows is how Cruz and the left-wing media tortured the truth to score political points for their side. And don't let it escape you either that when Cruz is making her impassioned speeches at Donald Trump about Puerto Ricans dying, she's doing it while standing in front of tons of aid that was sent by the federal government. Much of that aid never got to its intended recipients because of the failures of Cruz and her administration to prepare for the upcoming storm. I'm not saying that she did it on purpose. I'm saying that she was incompetent in preparing for what everybody knew was going to be a really, really bad storm. September 20th, 2017. Hurricane Maria hits the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, the strongest storm ever recorded on the islands. It causes more than $94 billion in damages and leaves more than 3.5 million people in the dark. Homes are destroyed, food and fuel is in short supply, and most are without fresh water. Within days, San Juan's left-wing mayor uses the crisis to bash the Trump administration, despite the fact that FEMA was already burdened with the cleanup from two previous major hurricanes in Texas and Florida.
If anybody out there is listening to us, we are dying, and you are killing us with the inefficiency and the bureaucracy.
In truth, the Trump administration was already preparing to help Puerto Rico in the week before the storm, and within 48 hours had over 7,000 federal workers and 1,600 National Guardsmen on the ground to assist. By the time Carmen Cruz gave her impassioned speech,
I am done being politically correct. I am mad as hell.
The U.S. Navy vessels were already arriving with millions of meals, water, and building supplies. The military was busy flying tons of supplies into remote villages cut off by the storm. Thousands of volunteers were hard at work as well. Dozens of ships and aircraft, 2 submarines, and tens of thousands of American servicemen and women answered the call.
It's a very humbling and rewarding experience. You're pulling yourself out of your comfort zone, even if it gets a little bit tough at times. You're gone for the holidays, you're away from your family and your friends. I feel like you grow and develop during points of adversity, and you're also giving back at the same time.
But the truth is that Puerto Rico's problems started long before the storm. Financial mismanagement and corruption contributed to an already failing power grid. And leaders like Cruz failed to make any preparations by pre-positioning aid before the storm. You see some Black Hawk helicopters going overhead here that are delivering aid for sure out to this eastern section of Puerto Rico. You know, as we've been driving along the freeway out here, one of the most heartbreaking things I've seen is that they've put a lot of money into green energy initiatives here on this island to try to have a more stable power supply and cheaper power supply by using the sun and wind. Well, just back here a little ways, we saw some wind turbines that were completely shredded. Right here behind me, there's a big solar farm that is just completely destroyed, and they're going to have to rebuild this from the ground up. This is not something that's going to be easily repaired by any stretch. And that's just one more thing that's going to happen in a country that is already broke for the people here to get the lights back on. The result? Many Puerto Ricans won't have electricity until well into 2018. The final death toll could be in the thousands, and perhaps as many as 10% of all the island residents may move to the United States. The U.S. military is still on the ground today, working hard on the infrastructure like the Oaxaca spillway, which was close to failing after the storm.
We are working hard to avoid further erosion of the spillway. We're working hard to bring water to the people of the towns of Quebradillas and Isabela, keep them safe.
They're also supporting those who are trying to get the lights back on. By Christmas, officials hope to have power restored to at least 50% of the island. But crime, cost overruns, and corruption have hampered relief efforts, and armed security is still in high demand. As relief work continues, guardsmen from 29 different states have volunteered to spend their holidays helping those in need. And these airmen from the Minnesota National Guard consider it an honor.
Well, my troops and I are here. We are in Salinas, Puerto Rico at Camp Santiago. We were sent here for the mission of feeding the different people from around the country that have come here to assist with disaster relief. My troops and I couldn't possibly be more honored to have the opportunity to come to Puerto Rico and help with this disaster relief effort. The people here are amazing. They're so resilient. They are friendly. They appreciate the help, but they are just doing such a great job on their own. So any assistance that we can give them during this effort, we are so proud to be a part of. We relish the opportunity to be here.
About 80% of gas stations, supermarkets, and ATMs are now back in service, but fresh water is still a problem for the remote villages up in the mountains. For them, this year, just being able to turn on the tap and get fresh water might be the best Christmas present they could ask for. This iconic fortress in San Juan's Old Town has been weathering hurricanes for more than 500 years. So Maria didn't do much to harm it, but the little village or neighborhood just below it, called La Perla, was severely damaged by the storm. Many people lost their roofs, like that house down there. Some people lost their entire homes. And the people that live here say they were forgotten by the government, but they've been forgotten for many years. They also say that defense is up to them. They don't trust the police to do it. They take it upon themselves.
We've been asking the mayor for tarps, and supposedly there was 5,000 tarps, and we haven't received one.
Do you feel like this thing has been politicized to death? I mean, you know, the politicians fighting amongst themselves about who's doing more, and the people down here don't seem to really care so much about that.
I don't even know. We have no communications with the outside world. Somebody told me about a terrible tragedy in Vegas, but I have no clue. We're here without any electricity. We're here without knowing about anything else in the world. So we don't know what the politicians are saying. We don't know anything. We're just here living in it. I don't know who's fighting what. I just hear little bits. Like I heard about the mayor. I thought the mayor was for us. Now I'm hearing the mayor actually has all these things. And so who knows what to believe. I just know we're here and we haven't received help.
Now, the good news is that Puerto Rico is much better prepared for this storm than they were for Maria. In a news conference, the new governor, Wanda Vasquez, said they've now got 5 or 6 times as much in stock in the terms of spare parts and posts and cables and transformers than they had back then. But there's still some 30,000 homes in Puerto Rico that have blue tarps as roofs, where the 3 million inhabitants depend on a shaky power grid that was destroyed by Maria and still remains prone to lots of outages, even in the slightest rainstorm. The government officials on the island warned of possible landslides, flash flooding, and power outages, with Puerto Rico's health secretary urging that those with conditions like diabetes and things like that to get prepared, because they weren't the last time, and a lot of people died. The island's transportation secretary acknowledged that crews are still rebuilding the roads that were damaged or blocked by Maria. He said there's still more than 1,000 roads blocked by Maria's landslides. Remember, that storm happened almost 2 years ago. That's unbelievable. Dorian already caused power outages and downed trees in Barbados and St. Lucia on the way to Puerto Rico. And while we're not still sure where it's going to go after it hits Puerto Rico, because the long-term track shows it may go over Florida over the weekend as a possible Category 2 storm. So there are likely to be lots of real people who need help in the aftermath of this storm, and there are plenty of resources out there that could help them. But politicians slinging mud around at each other, that's not helping anybody. In reality, the aftermath of Hurricane Maria might very well influence the 2020 presidential elections, because over 200,000 Puerto Ricans have left and moved to Florida, which, as you probably know, is an important swing state. Puerto Ricans typically vote Democrat, so if you wanted to form a conspiracy theory about how Democrat leaders in Puerto Rico purposely botched the response to the hurricane in 2017 so they could help elect a Democrat in 2020, you might have some takers on that. Now, I don't think that was a conscious thing, though. Politicians don't have to try to screw things up. It's their stock in trade. So our next president may end up being a Democrat because a big storm hit a little island back in 2017. I think that's what you would call the butterfly effect. And I guess we'll see what happens. So that's all I have for today, folks. Thanks for watching The Hot Zone. If you like what you're seeing here, please share it. Share it with your friends, and go over and subscribe at patreon.com/hotzone. You'll help keep this content coming and keep it free for everybody else. And you get to be smarter than all your friends on issues that really matter. So I'm Chuck Holton. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow on The Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.